Hello, art parents. Believe it or not, we are to February, which is so crazy. But such a fun artist for this month is Georges Braque. And our big art project for the year, the canvas boards, which hopefully will be a fun thing for them to keep and take home and display in their house. So here is Georges. He was born in a suburb of France in 1882. So really that golden age of art. I mean, man, can you imagine being in Paris in the late 1800s, early 1900s? That's where it was at, man. So kind of a fun artist. And you can probably tell definitely a preferred time period for me. I try not to pick out too many of the artists from this era, but this really is the time that we were switching over from strictly representational or realistic art to modern art. We're coming in with the more abstracted art, and it's so exciting. It's so fun to see. So Georges Braque was a cubist. He started out, he started out as a decorative painter. His dad and grandpa were both decorative painters and award-winning decorative painters, which just meant they did housework. They did houses. But they did more of the decorative painting. And this is kind of right at the height of Art Nouveau. So there was a lot of really ornamental painting going on in homes, which is super cool. And he also went to art school at night and realized he had an aptitude for fine art. He really had the ability, and I would imagine was supported well by his family. There isn't a whole lot. He wasn't a good journal keeper. We don't have a ton of information about his personal life. I mean, there's some, but nothing super outstanding. He wasn't a super crazy character like Edvard Munch or even Pablo Picasso, that they were good friends and worked together. So he started in with the faux, which, like Matisse, were the artists that used the bright colors and were really focused on conveying emotion. This is an earlier piece of his. But even in this earlier piece, you can see this draw towards the geometric and really breaking things down or abstracting them into their shapes. And you can see that strong, all the crisscrossing cubes and the arches, and kind of that awesome juxtaposition of those trees, with the really organic flowing fill. So even in his early work, you can see the seeds of Cubism. And then he kind of moves on. This is Fruit Bowl that's kind of a good middle ground piece there. And I love that he's painted, but he's also done some sketching over the top. And then the papier collier, which is his, the collage, that he kind of pioneered that technique of doing it, which is really fun. So he and Picasso become friends, work so closely together. They worked so closely together. They would paint side by side on the street, and art historians say you really can't tell the difference between the canvases without the signatures, which I think is really cool. That's really fun. And then where that relationship kind of pivoted was with World War I. Georges Braque joined the French army and served in the war, and then was injured and had a head injury and was temporarily blind. So kind of a different path, whereas Pablo Picasso, he was an adamant, he really spoke out against the war, and so obviously didn't serve. But they remained friends their entire life. They just didn't have that close working relationship after. And you can see Georges Braque really committed to Cubism his whole life. His work really centered around that movement, whereas Picasso I think he was just really an experimenter. He fathered so many different styles, and he moved on and tried so many different things. So he really didn't want to be just stuck in this one mode of doing things. This one is my favorite. I love that. Such a fun piece. I like the minimalism and that great use of negative space and the crisp lines of the paper, the collage. Really fun. And, just as you look at this with the kids, just the same art questions we always encourage them to ask. How does this make you feel? What do you think? Is this good art? Do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? What do you think Braque was trying to say with this? We see that it's obviously music related with the strings of the violin or maybe viola, and it says Mozart. And what do you think? I've also noticed the shading in these individual little spaces. What do what does that make you feel? Do you like it? Do you not like it? That's what it's all about. And then we'll move on to our own canvas boards. And as you can see behind me, I've got a tray of just like still life objects. And you can set those out. You can leave them on the tray. If you're tight on space, just leave them on the top of the art card on the tray. Or if you have some more space, you can kind of arrange it out a little bit on a table. Please ask the kids not to really touch, just because I'm hoping things come back in one piece. It's always a gamble, right? But what we want to do to encourage them to get different viewpoints and get that kind of cubist feel to their paintings is to take a look, kind of decide what you want to do. Maybe you want to focus on that ukulele. Maybe you want to focus on the flowers. Maybe you want to do all of it. Maybe you only want to do an apple and just do a really interesting painting of an apple. Totally fine. It's totally up to you. Anything you want to do. And what we're going to do is just take a look at that, and then just super, super lightly, I'm going to sketch in the items that I'm going to put in my painting. And as you can see, I mean, we're super, super light here. And then we're going to see where we want to put in some paper. So I've printed out some paper with music and words, but then we also have a bunch of scrapbook paper. If you want to have tons and tons of paper on there, great, go for it. If you want to have one piece, great. If you don't want any at all, great. Whatever you want to do, it's totally up to you. So I thought it would be fun to put some music down for the ukulele. So I kind of get my feel for where I want things, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quietly and, with great self-control, get up and move to a different spot in the room. And I'm going to take a look at this now from this new angle and see how I want to change and what I want to put in. So as you can see, I've got like the ukulele from the front here, but then I'm going to get a little crazy and I'm going to put the side of the ukulele on top of it. And then I might even paint the strings over the top of that. But that's got to wait. Because first I've got to start with my background stuff, because when we paint, we work from the background up. And the reason why we do that, oh, sorry, I'm trying to get you a video without coughs, but it's just not happening. The reason why we do that is then our painting will have a nice cohesive look to it. Have you ever tried to paint something and maybe you're making the face and you get those eyes in just how you like, and then you think, oh, I wanted to put some skin around it. So you have to carefully paint around the eyes, and maybe you get over on it, and darn it, now it's kind of smudged. And if you start from the background up, that won't be a problem. It's a tricky thing. I mean, there's always one or two that just won't believe you, and they do it the way they want to do it, and that is fine. But if you start from the background up, it'll look better. So I'm gonna, now that I've got my things sketched in and I kind of know where I want my paper, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start with just some background colors. I think I want just like a few like crazy big shapes, just to give it kind of that fun cubist feel. And I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me paint, but I'm just going to, I'll get my shapes in. And then I'll start putting in, I've got the candlestick behind, so I'm going to put that in, and then I'll put in my ukulele, and then I'm thinking I might put in an apple even up here, up front too. Totally, whatever you want. And just a few reminders when we paint. We don't give a ton of paint to start out with, because a lot of times they don't use as much as they think they will. So I always just say, I'm going to give you 3 colors to start out with. Pick 2 or 3, we'll start out with those, and I'm just going to give you a little bit. You can have as much as you want, but you can't really put the paint back in the tube very easily, but I can always give you more. You can have as much as you want. And then the other reminder is when we use our paintbrushes, they're really thirsty, so we always want to give them a drink before we start painting. And then if your paint starts to look kind of scratchy, you can give them another drink. You don't even have to wash the paint all the way off. You can just dip it in really quick and just, dip it in really quick and then tap it on the side and go back to painting. And, maybe you need to add more paint, but it might be just fine. It might give you a cool effect. And then the other thing to keep in mind is the only place our paint will get off of the brush is on the tip here. We only paint with the tip of the brush. If we get paint clear down in here, it just makes our brush stiff and yucky and they don't work as well. So we just dip the very tip in the paint. I tell even the 6th graders like that. Even the 6th graders, I tell them the same as the kindergartners because it just seems to need to be really elementary to get through. And then when you're washing the brushes after the project, just make sure, what I usually do is I just throw them all in the bottom of the sink. I wash out the cups so that they have a minute to kind of soak. And then I just take 2 or 3 of them at a time and just really splay out the brush tips and make sure you get clear down in there. Just kind of rub that around and use some soap, just some of the hand soap. Rub it around, and then if you'll just, push them back up so that they're up, and then stick them in the cup with the tip up. Every once in a while we get some tips down and that ruins the brushes. They bend and then they're just not very good for painting. So we just want to take care of these guys because they are a very large chunk of our budget. Thanks so much for all you guys do. I appreciate you so much, and I hope you're having a great time doing these lessons. As always, please don't hesitate to call me or text me or email me if you have any questions. I'm here to support you. I hope you have a great month and enjoy Georges Braque.